Yes. What is up, everyone? And welcome to your favorite Average and Good podcast called What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside two GOATs of the U.S. men's national team, Tony Meola and Brian McBride. And we are going to discuss the U.S. getting knocked out of the Olympics, losing 4-0 to Morocco. I feel like my energy is maybe a little bit too high for such a sad state of affairs. But McBrizzle, I'm going to come to you first. What were your overall thoughts on this performance by the U.S.?
Yeah, my overall thought is, the intensity was lacking from the first kickoff. You got to give Morocco credit. They were exceptional with the movement of the ball and the movement off the ball. I thought you could see this group understood exactly how they were going to break down the United States. They passed through constantly, causing us to be on our heels for almost all of the first half. And then when we won it, we didn't really have any ideas, and you could see the lack of confidence in some of the players. And that mixture of a really good team that can move the ball and you're not at your best as the team that's going against a really good team, you're going to get a result like this. And unfortunately, some of our guys had actually played well in this tournament. We're part of that. I thought Nathan Harriot looked really tentative, and when he just kicked the ball out for a corner with no pressure, I was like, oh no, this is not good. But yeah, you got to give Morocco credit. They played really well, and they're a very good team.
Now, Big Tones, do you feel like, just to throw this part of the conversation out there, because I think it's real, even though Morocco subjected to the same, but this is our fourth game in 12 days. And to McBrizzle's point, we looked a little bit tired, and Morocco, I think we're playing on the front foot. They deserve to win. There's no denying who deserved to win this game, but it came down to those little details, like McBrizzle was talking about when Nathan Harriot kicked the ball out for a corner when he didn't need to, which ultimately kind of started the sequence for them scoring their first goal.
Yeah, I would kind of term it as they were playing in a different gear, Morocco. And you mentioned it, right? The fitness part of it, they dealt with the same stuff, right? And so that did they get refreshed in any way different than we did? I'm not sure. I don't know that you possibly can in a short period of time like this, but I just thought they were a better team in all facets of the game. They put us under pressure. We didn't deal with the pressure. We set up in a way that I think was successful in match day 2 and match day 3, where we were going to counterattack a little bit. And they were better than this in all facets. They were better in transition defending. They were better with ball circulation. They were quicker. And I just, the term that immediately comes to mind is just a different gear that Morocco was in.
All right. You YouTubers, make sure you hit like and subscribe. We are just going to now pivot so we can get ready for the Golasso Network. Again, hit like and subscribe and don't go anywhere. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite Average to Good podcast. Call it what you want. We are talking about the U.S. men's national team, our U23s, our Olympic team, and their 4-0 loss in the quarterfinals of the Olympics to Morocco. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside two U.S. men's national team greats, Brian McBride and Tony Meola. And guys, a pretty disappointing way to end this tournament. And in some ways, kind of a sandwich of results. We lost 3-0 to France, a very good team, one of the favorites to win the gold medal. We had two good performances in the middle of that, and then we got sandwiched with a very good Moroccan performance, who were the deserved winners throughout. I just wonder, what do you think we could have maybe done different in this game? Brian, I'll come to you first. In terms of, was it a starting 11 thing? Because we made one change where Max Dietz came out, who's a little bit more defensive-minded. We had Jack McGlynn start, and I like Jack McGlynn, but I felt like he got a little overrun. And maybe the whole team did, so it's not just isolated to him. But do you think we could have done anything different, or there was just no way we were going to outlast this Morocco team after 90 minutes, given how well they played?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jimmy, because you saw in the second half we came out and we actually started pressing a little higher. But at the same time, what that did is it just left more space for the Morocco to play through. And so The setup itself, I think, in the first half, it was fine, and you could see that they've been playing that same setup the whole tournament. The problem was the lack of intensity. There wasn't that initiative to go close the ball down, and then when we did win it, we didn't have the confidence to either stay on the ball a little bit longer and try and connect passes. Throughout the first half, we were chasing shadows. And that large part of that is because of how good Morocco was at circulating the ball and moving the ball 1-2 touch real quickly. And the movement off the ball caused us a bunch of problems. It spread us out, especially on that right-hand side for Morocco and down our left side. So you add in, we didn't really cause them any problems or give them any question marks and have them sort of put back on their heels. I thought Paredes was probably the only player in the first half that actually was engaging and taking on players. But you have to give Morocco credit. They in the first half they were just rampant, and we were fortunate to only be down 1-0 at halftime.
Yeah, just to throw this out here, Big Tones, we got to talk about the penalty on Nathan Harriel. The first one, he got called for 2, not Nathan Harriel's favorite game, I'm sure, in his lifetime, and he'll have a lot to learn and grow from, and I know that he will. He's got a lot of tools to be an excellent player moving forward. But in this particular game, not too great. But I just thought it was a little hard done by on that first penalty. It didn't feel like one. But to Brian's point, Tones, Morocco was probably deserved to be in front at halftime anyway, given how they were driving the game.
Yeah, the penalties are a weird one, right, for defenders, because you don't really see the guy coming from sort of your angle from beside you, but you have to have an idea of where everybody is, I suppose, on the field, and there's contact, right? So you get called for the penalty and you go down, but you were under it, and the reason you were in those positions is because you were under it. There were some decisions for Marko to make in this game. You mentioned one of them with McGlynn, and then, of course, how he went up top without which was our only pure striker, if you will, with McGuire, right? He made the decision to go the same way that he went against Guinea, and I'm fine with it, right? I'm fine with making that decision. So it's one of those moments as managers, right? You make decisions and you hope that they work out, and in this case it didn't. But I just think we look at the 4 games. We beat the 2 teams that we probably should have beaten, and we lost the 2 teams that were better than us. I don't think that we lost to France, who we should have beaten, although we played fairly well, right, for 60 minutes or so. And in this game, I think if you play this game like 10 times, how many did the U.S. win? I just think Morocco is a better side than we are.
Well, that's why I wanted to get into some of the nuts and bolts of this, because I want to talk about first before we get into specific plays, because there are some that I highlighted that I thought this is where we lack, like this lack of commitment or desire to understand when we have advantages and then taking advantage of those advantages. And I thought we weren't consistent enough in that standpoint. But I do want to talk about Duncan McGuire, because in some ways, especially based on how we were being pressed by Morocco, we needed a big body up top to be an outlet for us instead of a slasher in Paxton Aronson or Paredes or Griffin Yao. So, Brian, I want to come to you as our resident number 9. Did it feel a little bit naive for Marko Mitrovic and the coaching staff to think, because Guinea wasn't good. If we look at it, Guinea just wasn't good, and the way that we set up against them played into our hands. The high press, the frenetic energy of Paxton Aronson in particular played really well into how they were set up, and it created a lot of opportunities for us. We knew that Morocco were going to be prepared because they got to see that game, but it just felt like having a bigger body doesn't say we're going to win the game, but I just feel like maybe we could have made them suffer a little bit or allowed us to get out of some pressure, because it just felt like they were going to give the ball to Miles Robinson, let him try to play out of it, a right footer on the left side. And then we needed a big body up top to get an outlet. And now I'm just kind of rambling. Your thoughts, Brian?
I'm not sure that was the case, Jimmy, just in the fact that when we saw Duncan McGuire come on, and I know it's a different time, right? And we're pushing more players forward. But they handled Duncan fine when he came in. And I thought the same thing going into when I saw the lineups come out. What if Morocco is just too good at pressing and we have a difficult time of playing through it? Then we should have done is we should have pushed Nathan Harriel, pushed everybody up, and push Nathan Harriel on the right-hand side, and you kick to him because he's extremely good in the air. He doesn't look it, but he is. And that's sort of your out ball to get out of that pressure and sort of maybe turn Morocco around, which we didn't do at all that game. And that just helps build pressure. And to your point, Jimmy, I thought the real problem we had is when we broke pressure first. And then when we got to midfield, we started playing backwards. And that just, I mean, you know it. When you see a team that stops at midfield and starts playing backwards, then you're just inviting pressure. And Morocco, to their credit, they did a great job of realizing it and then pressing hard. And that's where I thought we lacked the ability to change the game in the first half. We beat it once, and then we could go right back into it, and we'd have to beat it again.
Listen, the game kicked off at 6 a.m. here on the West Coast, and it's pretty rare when I yell at my TV at any time of the day, but especially in the morning when everybody here at the house is still sleeping. And there was a play in the 50-something minute where we're playing through some of their first line of pressure. We get into midfield, like you're talking about, McBrizzle. It goes into Mihailovic, and he just plays backwards. And it goes to Harriel, and then it goes all the way back to Schulte. And I screamed at the TV. I'm like, what are we doing? At what point? We're down 1-0. At what point are we just going to take that peek over your shoulder, find those little half turns, and we got to be able to play forward at some point. And it just felt like, I don't know if that's a sign of being tired, Tones, or if that's a sign of I don't know what it is, of lacking some confidence at that point, because Morocco was pretty much in control on both sides of the ball. That I screamed at my television, and I'll give you another play after that. But Tones, I want your thoughts on kind of our build-up play.
Isn't that indicative though of the entire match, right?
Well, no, it is. Yeah.
You play scared, and then all of a sudden you start thinking, look, we've all been in those matches before. It's not like we're immune to ever having been in those games before, where you think like the best option is the easiest option, where on another day the best option might be the second or third easiest option that you're willing to play, that you're willing to take responsibility to play. And that's just, that's just the way the game went. And we can look at all of those plays, but I would not be surprised if this Moroccan side went on to win this thing. I mean, how could you be surprised? They beat Argentina, who everyone says Argentina and France, that's the game that likely will determine the winner of this competition. Maybe we're just not giving, we didn't play well. There's no doubt about it. And the indication oftentimes for me is, just far too many easy balls given away, not taking the chances that we've seen in other games. And then I look at the speed of play. Man, those two wingers for Morocco, they're at a different level than we were. So you're comparing those two wingers to our two wingers, so I think are decent players, Paredes and Griffin Yao, and I'm glad Yao got to start. With the two of those, and then Aronson up top. I guess the one argument you could make is there's no Brian McBride, right? Like there's no Duncan McGuire, like the guy that can change the profile of those players, because they're all pretty much the same profile. When you're able to counterattack all day and run at teams and get into space, those three guys work well together, but that didn't turn into the game I think that they thought it was going to be. And then all of a sudden you add all those things up, and like for me, I can't get over the fact that Morocco, and maybe it's the Olympics and I didn't give them enough credit. I didn't take enough out of the Argentina game, which I watched from start to finish, how good they were, man. They were good. And I would not be surprised. I mean, that's a team that should win a medal. And I would think if they're not on the podium at some point, they'd be upset with their performance.
Yeah, I would say too, they got the unfortunate side of the draw because they play the winner of Spain, Japan, who are both two very good teams. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Final four ultimately, as we get down to the lower rounds. But there was another play, Brian, that I wanted to talk about that triggered me, and this was that was the first time I screamed was the start of the second half. So second time. First time was in the first half. It's the 42nd minute, and we give up a free kick.
Paxson takes down. Yeah,
Hakimi comes in, right? Yes.
Yep.
But Hakimi comes from right to left and comes in towards the top of our box. And what blows my mind is that the two players that are closest to him are Griffin Yao and Paxton Aronson. We're talking like 5 yards off the top of our box, maybe even closer. That demonstrates to me that our team shape is not where it should be. Our lines are super collapsed. And that is on, in some ways, it's on the center backs to make sure that Tanner Tessman and Jack McGlynn are pushed higher. Like that, when Hakimi comes into those areas, it shouldn't be a winger and our striker tracking Hakimi into that. He should just be running into where we already have guys. So that should be Tessman and McGlynn addressing that, and maybe even a couple yards farther outside the top of the box. And I screamed at the TV again. I was screaming this morning because that is a domino effect. And that's just, for me, a microcosm of where we were defensively. So, yes, we were trying to play the ball easily, right? If we were in tough situations, let's play the easy option, to your point, Tones, right? Which we talked about with the Mihalovic play. And then on this one, it's like nobody's stepping up and taking the responsibility. Like, this is my zone. Stay out of my zone, Griffin Yao. I'll take it from here. Because when we win the ball, even if we win that tackle, Paxton wins the ball or Griffin wins the ball, who are we going to play it to? Like, we have no outlet at that point, right? So our spacing is just all over the shop. And these are the little details that if we want to actually be a top team in international competitions consistently, this has to get ironed out all the time. Now, it's not to say that this doesn't happen to Spain or France or whoever at times. But for us, like this, these are the little things that we need to correct so that we can start to get a better footing and grip of the game. Because right now, Morocco's like, yeah, Hakimi's just running wilds, right? What are we going to do to make Hakimi suffer? How do we make him defend and start to think, oh, shit, I can't leave my area because I'm going to get countered? I don't think we ask enough of those types of questions. I'm off my soapbox. Brian McBride, take it away.
Jimmy, you're exactly right. And, I talked on a little bit. The fact that we didn't turn them around and put them running towards their goal speaks volumes to how well Morocco played and how their movement was just causing us problems. We were never able to get high enough to cause them problems. But going back to what you're talking about, I completely agree with you with the Yao and Paxton Harrison play. First of all, you should never make that tackle anyways, because Yao's on his inside. He's not going to be able to do much with it. So you don't make that tackle. Secondly, I think most of that comes from the movement prior to it, right? How many times was the number 8 able to run off of Jack McGlynn's shoulder and get in behind? And so now you got Jack worried about what's going on behind him, so he can't put pressure. So the movement alone allows Hakimi, who, let's be honest, is a special player, to make that run in. So the whole shape gets thrown off because of the movement of Morocco and the ability to not just they're making the runs, but they're executing the pass into the runs prior to that. So you have to worry about those types of runs. I thought Rahimi was able to occupy our center backs unlike any other team has for this tournament.
Sure.
And then you get this play. You get Hakimi's running towards, basically, if you let him run, continually run, he's going to run to the corner flag. That's not very dangerous. You don't need to make that tackle. In the end, it didn't hurt us, but it was sort of the epitome of how we had to defend in the first half. And again, how well Morocco was moving with the ball and without the ball.
Yeah, it's Tones, I want to hear from you, but we're going to have to take our first break here of Call It What You Want. We're going to get into some of the specific goals, and we're definitely going to get into the player ratings and see who was our MVP, not necessarily of this game, but of the whole tournament, who raised their stock, as it were. But this was a good lesson overall, I think, for a lot of our players. And in some ways, I should finish this first segment off by saying this. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that we qualified for the Olympics, because this gives an opportunity for our young players to get exposed to pressure in big tournaments against top teams. And we get to figure out what we're good at and what we're not. And then hopefully we can come home with that individually and collectively and say, okay, we need to get better in these areas. And that's obviously something we're going to talk about as we continue the show. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back in to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Tony Miola and Brian McBride, and we are breaking it all down for you. The U.S.'s, it's hard for me to say this out loud, 4-0 loss to Morocco, the quarterfinals of the Olympics, though it is the first time we've been into the knockout rounds of this tournament since 2000. So obviously a lot to be happy about or satisfied with. I thought there were some good moments. Even when we were down to France, there was some good response in that game. This game, not a lot to be excited about. We look at the match stats here. Possession, basically 60-40 in favor of Morocco. Shots, heavily favored for Morocco, who had 8 on target to our 1. They also had, I think they had 5 corner kicks in the first 20 minutes. And that's a sign as well that they're getting deep down our side of the field and really already asking questions. And that's how I knew. Just a little red flag that this was going to be potentially a long day. And it was a long day as we go on to lose 4-0. But let's get into our player ratings and Big Tones. I kind of just, you don't have to go into anything too specific unless you remember a player or two. But I want to hand off the midfield to you, and I'll end up doing goalkeepers and defenders. But let's just start with the midfield, because there is that old cliche that if you win the midfield, then you usually win the game. What did you rate the midfield, and were you happy with the starting 11? Would you rather have seen something different? Take it away.
Well, I'll start with the starting 11 because that's always a discussion point, and I think Marko had choices to make. You mentioned Dietz in the midfield. He made the decision to go with McGlynn. Could you look back at it and go, hey, we might get pinned back here in this game for a little bit, and maybe McGlynn's not the guy and you want Dietz in there. And then, of course, up top, you didn't go with your number 1 striker coming into the tournament, and you go with, let's call it, the 3 most mobile players you have, if you will, right, that did really well in the last match. So I'm okay. You made a decision as a manager, and I'm okay with it. It didn't work out in the end. I don't know if making those 2 changes would have changed the result, because I still feel like Morocco was just a better side than we were. Yeah. But I'm with you in the midfield. We got run over a little bit, and I've never played in the midfield, but I can imagine what it's like when you win possession of the ball. And within, you now make a move to get into an attacking position. You make a run, and within 2 passes, the ball's given away. And now you're coming back, and you do that like 2 or 3 times. It's, Brian's probably made like 100 runs behind and the ball doesn't come. Well, guess what? You're not making the 101st run, right? Like you're not making, then all of a sudden the game changes, because now you're not making a run and you're a little bit deeper. I thought all in all, look, Tanner Tessman, he's overall impressed me in the tournament. He's become a better player than I remember him leaving and going to, when I used to watch him play initially at Venezia. So good on him. Busio, obviously a little bit of a miss. He's a starter in there, but
yeah, if he starts, let's play the hypothetical. Yeah. If he starts today, ultimately I agree with you. Morocco runs us over regardless. I just think we were a little bit tired and amongst other things, and they were better.
And they're very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like though he could have provided something different, you know what I mean, that could have maybe kept the game score a little bit closer and kept the game a little bit under our more of our control?
Well, one thing we get from Busio, no matter what, and we've seen it when he was at Sporting, and we see it now in his game, and we saw it early in the competition, he's not afraid to have the ball at his feet in any moment, right? And he'll get you out of tight spaces, and he's confident with the ball. In a lot of ways, almost too confident, Busio is with the ball, right? In some of the things he tries to do. But he'll also dribble by you every now and then and make a move just to open things up. So we can play the game. Would it have changed if Busio was there? Of course, the game would change because it's a different profile, sure, right? But does it make a difference in the result, I think, is the most important thing. Right. And again, I feel like whether it just wasn't our day today, we didn't have the intensity, as Brian said, right from the jump. Right. That was the start of things for us. And we got steamrolled in a lot of ways. If you go, I can't wait to go back and watch it, because I did watch the first part of the game when I was at the desk at Morning Footy, watching it on my iPad. So you don't see everything, but everything I saw was tilted to one side of the field for quite some time in that first half.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to talk about with regard to Busio. One is he has a innate connection with Tessman because they play together with Venezia. So they've already been through so many repetitions in different situations and knowing how each one is going to move. I do think that matters, especially when you're playing against a team as good as Morocco is, who's going to really test you in a lot of those different ways. And then the point that you brought up, he's good at running with the ball through pressure. And you wonder how much that would have helped us today, because McGlynn, for me, feels like a pass first out of pressure type of player. And I think Morocco were set up nicely to manage that. Whereas the times that we did break pressure with our running, we'd also just play backwards and we wouldn't take advantage of that, which is a lot of our frustration for today. But I wonder what that would have looked like. He's very good at breaking that line in middle of midfield. So yeah, obviously a hypothetical, and I don't think it changes the result ultimately. But I think it would have made Morocco have to suffer maybe a little bit, just a little bit. All right, I'm going to go next, McBrizzle. I'm going to go back to the goalkeeper, Patrick Schulte, giving up 4 goals. Not a good look for anybody in the back line. Harriel gave up 2 penalties. I thought he was a little unsure of himself today. And Miles Robinson, not very good passing as well. I thought they allowed, and Walker as well. Walker Zimmerman allowed the lines to collapse too much. They got to, no matter what, even if you're suffering, the spacing has to remain the same. Otherwise, it's going to be even a longer game. Tolkien gets beat. The number 10 for Morocco is excellent. Ilyas Akomash. I thought he was very good. He ended up scoring the second goal and just more switched on. And I think that's another thing I want to give Morocco credit for, was how they could recognize and sniff the opportunity, and then they'd go with real purpose and intent and to really hit that like next gear that I thought the U.S. was lacking, and especially in that defensive awareness. So I thought our outside backs, not their best performance. Our center backs looked tired along with the rest of the team. Maybe the organization was a little bit slow. And, as the game's pushing on, we're trying to make other things happen. On the Hakimi goal, Tolkien maybe could have done better there. There's just so many. So I could give you numbers, but it's not going to be nice for anybody. So I'm just going to say it was a very poor performance from everybody, including our backline and goalkeeper. But, and maybe we could need Schulte to make 1 or 2 saves. Saving a pen would have been amazing. I know he can only do with what's in front of him. So I should probably give goalkeeper to Tones on that. But, yeah, you give up 4 goals. It's not going to be a good day at the office numbers-wise for you. So let's move to the attacking 3.
Well, I'd love to hear Tone's thoughts on the third goal.
The third goal, I'm guessing the Hakimi one, right?
Yeah.
That's the one you're going to question. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. It started on a long throw. So we were in transition. Paredes has got to do something better with Hakimi, foul him or win the ball or whatever it is, or make it a little bit harder. Hakimi finds himself in. Tolkien's caught now. Does he step to Hakimi? Does he go wide? He should for me personally, Tones, I think he should step to Hakimi a little bit sooner and just force the ball wide. It just looks too easy. Miles doesn't slide across, and then Schulte doesn't have any play on it whatsoever.
Yeah, and I always say that, when it goes through the defender's legs, Tolkien puts his leg up. And remember, Hakimi won that header at midfield. Yeah. And he just continued on a sprint and found himself in that position. But it did look like it rolled in fairly slow, right? It looked like there wasn't much pace on it. It bounces. I don't want to do the guessing game, but I will, because it seems fitting here.
We appreciate that.
There's a couple of moments in this Olympics as a whole where Schulte needed length, right? If you go back to the France game, right, 2 goals where he needed some length in his dive, and I don't think that's his game. And I told you guys at the beginning of the competition, I was about Gaga Slonina. We don't get to see him play in a major competition now. I still think he's part of he'll be part of the plans in 2026. But those are opportunities maybe missed. So Schulte, if you want to give an overall grade of the tournament, I probably would give a 6.5, a 7 to as a complete grade for the entire competition.
Okay, now let's get into forwards. Brian McBride, what are you saying for our front 3?
Yeah, I think if you go back to the previous 2 games, I know Griffin Yao came in as a sub in the second match, but still was very effective. I thought that his movement is what sort of made him special. And what he did with the ball, of course, was really good in both that second half and then the third match. I thought he was very, very effective. That interchange with him and Paxton, I thought was sort of unique and something we didn't have when Duncan McGuire was out there. We didn't see any of that today, largely because we didn't possess the ball enough, probably. But still, just asking questions, even if it's just changing positions for 5-10 minutes to see if something changes. I would have liked to seen something like that because both of them are very comfortable or have played in both those positions. Overall, not much end product, but let's be fair, there really wasn't many opportunities. Kevin Paredes, I thought, was the only one that really asked question of his defender. I'd still like him to stay on his feet a little more because then he'll get more calls if he, rides a few of those tackles or, pushes. it'll keep him sort of out of the mindset of the referee is like, oh, is he really being fouled or is he just diving? And then you end up getting more from the actual fouls. So having said that, I thought he was probably our most effective player, even though there wasn't really much from it. So all in all, it wasn't our best day. I thought there was times when we could have held the ball a little bit longer, draw the defender in, especially on the left-hand side. You could tell that Griffin was given a lot of respect to Hakimi. Didn't try and run by him. Now, very difficult to run by Hakimi, of course, but at least draw him in a little bit. Try and create some of that connection that you had before with Paxton Aronson. It just wasn't there for them today.
Okay, so now let's ask the big question. Who was the most versatile throughout the tournament for the U.S.? And Tony, I'm going to come to you first. Who are you feeling about the player that was our most valuable in so many different ways?
I think the guy that maybe it's a tough one.
It is.
I'm leaning towards Tanner Tessman as the guy who had overall the best tournament, and the guy that impressed the most. I thought Kevin Paredes grew into the tournament because I didn't think he was good in the first couple matches. But I'm with you, with Brian and you guys. He's got to kind of lay off the extras, if you will, just get on with playing, and the game will flow a little bit better for him, I think. Yeah, those are the two guys that come to mind. And if I had to pick one, I thought Nathan Harriel up until today had a really good competition. But I'm going to go with and Jimmy, you're asking the entire tournament, right?
That's correct.
Just so I have it right. Yeah. I'm going to go with Tanner Tessman as the guy who had the steadiest of the tournaments.
And he wore the captain's armband. They probably gave that to him for a reason. How about you, Brian McBride?
Yeah, I'd go with John Tolkien. I thought his intensity from the second match onward was excellent. He didn't get beat much today. It was a difficult job, of course. There wasn't much of him going forward today, but I thought in the second and third matches, he was just a great attribute for Paxton the second game, and then the third game with Griffin Yao and that connection. I thought he was solid defensively. His positioning and tucking in off of Miles's shoulder when crosses were coming in was good, and sometimes that's a question mark for outside backs. But Tessman I thought was solid, and can see why Tones picked him. I think in a situation like that, and I really like that Marko Mitrovic kept Tessman as the captain, because the one thing I felt when in 2008 when I was made captain, I felt like that's sort of taken away from what the team had already done. So I like that, because you have your natural leader, and you can see the older age players like Walker Zimmerman leads, right? He doesn't need the captain armband to do that. I'd go with John myself.
Okay, so I will say that I agree with Tessman. I like the John Tolkien shout as well. I thought in terms of consistency outside of Tolkien, a couple plays today was pretty good. If Busio had stayed healthy the whole time, I think he would have been part of the conversation. In terms of potential, I feel like you can see it the most with Paredes. And Griffin Yao's got a little spark there too, but there's something about Paredes. He's good in 1v1 situations. He can create space for himself. He can be dangerous. But again, he's got to get rid of some of those extracurriculars where he's throwing his hands up. Like he's trying to act like he's Thierry Henry when Henry was playing for the Red Bulls. Everything, he just throw his hands up all the time when he's frustrated. You're not Thierry Henry yet. Hopefully you can get to somewhere in that vicinity by the time your career's over in terms of that quality, but you got a long way to go. So I think, if you can just focus on playing, getting it up, getting just what if you get knocked down, you get back up and you keep playing. I think Leo Messi's a great example of a guy just shuts his mouth and keeps playing. So adding a little bit more of that to his game, I think would be good. All right, so we are going to take our next break and call it what you want. When we return, it's always more of the good stuff on your favorite Average to Good podcast. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy alongside McBrizzle and Big Tones, and we are talking a little bit about the fallout now of the U.S. getting knocked out of the Olympics in the quarterfinals against Morocco. And I think the big takeaway we want to discuss first and foremost, and Big Tones, I'll come to you first, is can this Olympics be viewed as a success for U.S. soccer?
Ooh, we had this discussion, a pretty good discussion yesterday about this, because I think when you go into, as an American fan, when you go into the Olympics, what's the one thing you think about? It's winning a medal, right? And that's normally is the line between success and failure when you talk about U.S. sports in this competition. I think we beat the teams that we should have beat. We didn't win against teams that were better than us. We didn't give much of a go today in this one. I thought we were run off the park. I'm going to go because I think at some point we have to start taking the training wheels off and start really judging it a little bit harsher, if you will, because we got to get results in some of these competitions. For me, it's a failure. You didn't get yourself into an opportunity even to win a medal. So for me, it's a failure.
Woo! Big Tone's coming in hot. Wasn't ready for that.
I'm not trying to be hot. I'm just giving you my perspective. I'm not trying to give a hot take in this. I just think that there were expectations for this group. They had expectations on themselves. And then the two matches that we didn't find a way to win. I hate the term signature win because I think it gives you a very small window of success, because we all know on any given day, right, you can win a game. We've all been in those games on both sides, and but we didn't get that again, right? We didn't get one of those again. France could have been that. Remember the opening day, France could have been that. 60 minutes in, you're thinking, okay, we have an opportunity. 1-0 down. We hit the crossbar. Tolkien comes back post and hits the post. You think you're in the game, and then you lose 3-0 at the end. You're like, you're deflated again. Yeah, I mean, what? It's nice we were here for 24 years.
Yeah,
but I just don't. Yeah. If you're giving me a hard line with pass and fail, I'm gonna go fail.
No, I just, you got to give me and McBristle a heads up when you're coming in with.
You asked me a question. You didn't prep me the question. You just asked me the question live. That's it.
I did. No, I appreciate that insight, because yes, if we start to look at it more critically, then it should be a fail. We didn't get that signature win, whether we like that phrase or not. And I agree with you. It does get a little old, but we don't have that one result where we can build off of and say, hey, we're starting to lay this really meaningful foundation for what's next. And I guess that would be kind of the next layer to this question then, Brian, from your perspective. Did we lay enough of a foundation for us to kind of grow from this? Because when we look at game management against France, okay, we hung in there, but didn't score when we needed to and when we could have. And then we let the game get away from us. And then we play against Morocco and never really found our way into the game. But could we still survive? Still 1-0 at half. What were we doing in the second half too? Because that's where the game got away from us against France too. So what can we take away from those two things? And then I think it is important that we are good enough to beat the teams that we should. And we did do that. And I think that we should be applauded, and that should be applauded, and we should be satisfied with that. That's a sign of growth as well. But I just kind of, where do we take it from here, I suppose?
Well, I look at this as sort of as what we expected, right? We expected them to get out of the group. We expected them to finish second behind France. And then it becomes, it's a success if you win today. Is it a failure, in my opinion, that you lost today? How we lost, yeah, that was not pretty. Certainly I would hope we could have caused more problems for Morocco. We didn't. And again, that a lot of that is down to the fact that it's such a good Moroccan side. So, I mean, for me, it's hard for me to say it's a failure, knowing what they're going to be able to take away from it. And yeah, that sounds wishy-washy. But this experience alone, because we haven't had this since 2008, I think will help each of these players get better and improve. So maybe in the distance, it's more of a success because they were a part of this tournament. For me, are the things that take away. And Jimmy, you talked a little bit about it, right? And I thought today it was 1-1, and Miles Robinson. Yeah, it falls to Miles Robinson from a header back across from Walker Zimmerman, and he stabs at it with his left foot. If he goes with his right foot, does he have a better opportunity to score? Yeah. Does he score? Maybe. But those are the times that's going to change U.S. soccer. When we have the opportunity against a team that's better than us, and we can sort of put one away against the run of play and start putting question marks in their head, then I think that's when you can say that it's a success in a situation like this. And it's not just the Olympic team, it's the full men's team. We need to take opportunities when we get them against the better teams, because you could see Morocco at no time today felt like we were causing them any problems. And you guys know, if you're in a game where we're playing against the team and we feel like we can do whatever we want on the field and not have anything to worry about going the other way, it just, the confidence level and the things you start doing is just at a higher capacity than you would if you had to worry about the team you're playing against.
So I mean, this is going to lead to a bigger conversation.
Hold on. You're not going to do your duty as the host to ask McBride if it's a failure or a success.
I just told you.
I was waiting for you, Tones, because you were triggered. Clearly triggered. We got him, everybody. We got him.
You don't have to. You don't have to do your job. Don't worry. I get you.
Hey, Tone, I just told you. I don't think it's a failure, and I don't think it's a success. I thought it was average.
But he didn't ask you the question yet. He didn't give you your two choices yet.
Well, I took it my way.
No. We're actually taping this show, so we can go back and listen to it.
Success or failure, Brian McBride? What say you?
Hey, listen, it was average. It was an average performance.
He's not answering, Tones.
You can look at it. You can look at it in a sense of, was it a failure that we didn't get to the medal round, which was what everybody was talking about? Yes, for sure. That didn't get to a medal round, didn't have a possibility of winning them. That's a failure. Did they do better than their expectations? No, definitely not. But I also think there was some good parts to this tournament. I agree. I think that in the end, what we're going to get from it long term is going to be a benefit. So that
sounds like a success.
No, it's not. It's not a success until we know that this has been a success.
Okay,
that it has helped players to make sure that they understand, oh, I feel this way. I feel really under pressure. So I'm just going to make the easy pass. Wait a second. Now I remember what happened in the Olympics. I'm going to receive this, and I'm going to try and ask questions of the person that's marking me. And if not, I'm going to make the right pass. And it doesn't mean I'm going to make it an easy pass. So those are the things that I'd like to see from this tournament that today we didn't see.
So for me, first time we've qualified in 16 years for the Olympics. That's a success, right? So we're walking in feeling like it's a success. We look at our group, a group that we feel like on paper we should get out of. We accomplished that. We had a group in Copa America that we thought we should get out of. We didn't. That's obviously a massive failure. It cost Berhalter his job. Now we get out of our group and we go up against a very good Moroccan team. I wish we would have had a better account of ourselves. We didn't. And so within that game, I can see where the failures exist. And even against France too, managing the game and decision making, even when we're tired. What can we do on both sides of the ball? Like these are a symptom of the system, I would say. Like, how do we develop these players that can manage these situations, and how can we get more guys that can manage a game? And it's such a big conversation. I think we probably have to dedicate a whole show to what the infrastructure has to do and what it has to develop to make sure we can really start to bring these players along. Number one for me, just to throw it out there, is that I don't know if a lot of our young players are students of the game. They're good athletes. They love to play, but are they watching? Are they consuming it in a way that's going to help them learn the subtleties and nuances that you can see other teams who are just born into that culture that they have? So it's a bigger conversation. So yes, there were some successes, but in this particular game and how we performed against Morocco, we had a big moment to maybe take that next step and get into the semifinal. That felt like a failure. So a little recency bias there, but I think there's a lot to build off of. And I think the future could be bright as we continue to grow and learn from this opportunity.
You feel like me, Jimmy, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I am like you, but so success to start, little failure at the end. It's all mixed in. And now I want to go take a shower. All right, we're going to take our next break of Call It What You Want. And we got more good stuff for you on the other side of it. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Brian McBride and Tony Miola. And I kind of want to talk very quickly about Marko Mitrovic and then the job we thought that he did. And did he utilize his roster the most? Now, it's so hard to say about which players he could have had. And we don't know if clubs were releasing them or what the difficulties were or injury concerns with all that. So let's just talk about the roster that he has. Tony, what did you think? What kind of grade would you give Marko Mitrovic based on the roster he put together, knowing that there was a Diego Luna out there in particular who was available and he wasn't selected amongst the ones that we do know for sure that could have come in and he didn't take, and then how he managed the team throughout the tournament? What did you think of his performance as a coach?
Yeah, so I thought he learned a little bit from the France game, right? Changed how we pressured. I think if he has to do the match day one against France over again, he might press them a little bit more than just sit back and allow them to have the ball. Like we came out in the second half, he may have deployed that a little bit earlier, but no problem. It's the home team opening night of the competition. He, some nerves. So maybe that's a little bit more conservative. He makes a change in the second game. They get a really good result. They press really high. They win balls against New Zealand, who was really poor on the day building out of the back. So he makes some changes there. That's a positive. Third game, he makes the decision to go with no pure striker and puts the three that he started today up front. So we learn a little something new there, and they play really well again. And today, again, I don't know what Marko, he wasn't going to change his formation. I think this is the formation he went with the entire tournament. So not surprised that he changed there. I would give him, I suppose I'd give him a C+, a B. In his grade,
those are two big grades there. A C+ or a B? Where are we going?
C+, B-, whatever. Yeah, sorry. Okay. I'm Jimmy, I never had either of those, so I don't really know what they look like on a report card. And believe me, I didn't have the other one, the better ones either. But yeah, look, I don't know that I fault Marko Mitrovic based on who he brought to the competition for losing to Morocco or France in this competition. Of course, those are the guys that always take the brunt. But yeah, that's how I feel about his performance. It was okay. Again, young coach has to learn in these moments, and hopefully from this, like players, he will grow.
Okay, Brian, how about you?
Yeah, I think the whole question about players and who he picked, there can be some real question marks on that side of it. How that went about. But with the group here, then I go to the same thing, is looking at, what the coach does to prepare the team before the game, what the coach does at halftime to change the game if need to, or at least solidify the game. And I thought in every match, Marko had made some changes coming out of second half. And some of those were mentally, some of those were actually positionally. And those are the things you want to see from your head coach. Now, when you do that, you also have to make sure you're preparing your players for opening yourself up a little bit. And that's where I thought we didn't necessarily get it right, because we opened ourselves up. Yes, we had to, especially today, being 1-0 down at halftime. And that's where I thought we didn't do a good enough job. And Marko, whether he had implemented this situation, the players didn't execute, or vice versa, that's hard for anyone to know if you're not in the locker room. But I look at a coach when you come out at halftime, and is it a little bit different because it needs to be different? And is it beneficial going forward? Yes, it was. But defensively, we opened ourselves up, which we knew we probably would, both against France and against Morocco today. So I'd give him a C+.
All right, I'll go B-. I'll be, even though it feels like a negative because I'm saying minus, and you guys C+, you got the positive going with you. I like the B-. I do think there's a couple things he could have done a little bit different, but there was such glimmers of some positivity that you could be built off of. And I hope that we, as I mentioned before, grow and learn from this opportunity in a really meaningful way. All right, that's a wrap from us on the Golasso Network, but we have more Call It What You Want to come on YouTube and the podcast. Oh, hello, and welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Brian McBride and Tony Miola. And now let's pivot to some other news, because I've been in my feelings enough about this game. I need to process a little bit more of the Morocco. Give me a couple days to sift through it, and we can talk about it maybe if we want in our next podcast whenever we get to that one. But let's talk about Steve McClaren, assistant coach at Manchester United for Eric Ten Hag, decorated career for Manchester United and other places that he's coached. He's taken over Jamaica. Wait, what? I did not see that coming. And so what do we say to this? And Brian, I'll start with you on this one. What do you say about Steve McClaren taking over the Reggae Boys?
Yeah, I think it shows real impetus from Jamaica. You touched on it, storied career as a coach. Really highly thought of. He was an assistant coach for a while under Alex Ferguson. Also, the experience there is evident. And the thing that pops in my head right away is dual nationals, and really getting that focus on the dual nationals to buy into what Jamaica wants to do and where they want to get, because there's a ton of real quality players that are dual nationals that have English heritage and also has Jamaican heritage. And so this really, I think, puts them on the map. And if Steve McClaren can get those players to buy into being, for Jamaica every international, because that's part of the problem and has been since we were playing, Tony, that you'd get these exceptional players, but as soon as they got knocked out of the World Cup qualifying or knew they couldn't qualify, they wouldn't come in for Gold Cups. They wouldn't come in for the rest of the qualifying rounds, and they wouldn't come in for friendlies because it was such a long trip. So if he can get those dual nationals to buy in to what Jamaica's trying to do, they're going to be very good.
Yeah, I would say not only in terms of commitment, just in general, right? One, and being committed to the team, but also can they have that discipline? I remember when I've had my opportunities to play against Jamaica, they would be able to keep it together for about 60 minutes. And then all of a sudden they'd get a little frustrated with each other. And then you could just see them like, whatever. And then they just kind of fall apart. And then you could play through them a little bit and you'd score a few goals. And so I wonder if Steve McClaren can help with that commitment that happens both on and off the field. Your thoughts on this move by Jamaica, Big Tones?
Yeah, what Brian said was the first thing that came to mind is the dual national thing. And we've seen a bunch of players that have dual nationals that are English and Jamaican, of Jamaican and English descent, right? So we saw in the Nations League, right, the last one we covered with Hallgrimsson, one of the issues were he had suspensions in the group. He had players that had there was infighting in the group, so he left some players out. Some guys didn't show up, as Brian said, for that tournament as well. If they get a sense of team and buy into what he's talking about, and I'm guessing during the interview process, Brian, you'd know better than anyone, those questions probably had to be answered, right? Like that's something. How do you bring this team together? Because I think we've all kind of been waiting and waiting since we all played, right? Like Jamaica always seems to me like the next team that's coming, right? The next team that is going to make a jump in CONCACAF, and then something always seems to go awry because it's never looked like a matter of talent with that group. There's always seemed to be infighting in the federation or within the national team itself, and there was the battle with bonuses for years in that club when no one wanted, with that national team, no one wanted to come in. So if Steve McClaren can get it right, or if any manager there can get it right, that would be mission number one, is to get everyone on the same page and buying into the national team, and they can be a pretty difficult group to deal with.
Oh, they're always a handful. It's just a matter of whether they can keep it together for a 90-minute period, and do they have the depth also? Sometimes I think they lack some depth that can come off the bench and make a difference. But if Steve McClaren can figure that out, they could be a force to be reckoned with. So here's the big question. Let's have some fun here. And Brian, I'll come to you first. Now, Mexico and us, the US and Canada, have all qualified automatically for the World Cup in 26 as hosts. What do you think are going to be, or who do you think are going to be the next three nations that join us from CONCACAF? I'll put my name in for Jamaica. I think they'll be one of the three. But then who? Is it Panama? Is it Costa Rica? Is it Honduras? El Salvador? Who do you think will be the other two that potentially join Jamaica, or maybe you don't think Jamaica will do it?
No, I do. I think Jamaica will make it. I look at Panama and they're getting older, but they're still really talented, and there's some young players coming through. So I think Panama is another team, and then Costa Rica. They always do well in qualifying. I think Costa Rica comes through that too. It's pretty simple. I think when you look at some of the teams that are ebb and flow that have been there, like Trinidad, Honduras have been there. We haven't seen a lot of quality in their group. Not to say there's not talented players there, but as far as causing other teams problems away from home, that's going to be the area that I think gets teams qualified. Getting draws, getting the odd win away from home. And I just think the experience of Panama, Costa Rica, and then with what Jamaica can put out, I think they'll be the three that go through.
Okay, I like that. Now, there's already been 2 World Cup qualifiers. We're really way early on this. But Honduras has got 2 wins out of 2. Costa Rica cruising, 2 wins out of 2. Haiti, also 2 wins out of 2. Curacao. Nicaragua, Panama, both teams that have won both of their games. Guatemala is another one to throw in there. Jamaica have won there too. Suriname would be the other one. El Salvador actually 1 draw so far. That's not a good look for them. Tones, are you in agreement with Brian? Same teams, or do you like somebody different?
Yeah, the only thing I would add to Costa Rica, they're in a really bad cycle with their youth national teams, and they have been for a little while. You just wonder with all of those old players if they can continue one more qualifying period, because they always seem to qualify, right? As Brian said. So that would be the only thing I would add. And if Trinidad, I don't know much about what's happening in the Trinidadian footballing world, right? I don't see the same type of players, the Russell Latapes type guys, the Yorks that are going to Europe, where we thought that was going to be like that was going to be ongoing, and that cycle hasn't continued. So they would sort of be the outsiders. Yeah, but I don't see very many surprises in it. I suppose you could look at Curacao, right, and go, man, if they can get all those Dutch players that have, like Jamaica's doing, that have a dual citizenship at Curacao, somehow they get them registered. But there's been lower division players that have made that team. But I mean, that's a real outsider for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. I mean, I think it gets pretty competitive there. Get Jamaica. I think Panama is going to be a good look. Thomas Christensen, I think, is a very good coach, and he's going to make sure that they qualify as well. And then it gets like there's a handful of teams, and you just wonder who's going to show up in the big moments. All right, well, let's talk about one of the teams that have qualified for the World Cup in 26, Canada. And obviously their women's team got caught for spying using some drones. The men's team been documented. They've done the same. Brian knows that they've done it before and been in trouble for it. So Tyler Adams, our captain, I'm wearing his jersey right now, speaking on the Cooligans podcast, and shout out to Cooligans, longtime friends of us and of the show. Tyler Adams said this on their show: I know for a fact every team does it. And he's talking about spying in some capacity. I don't know about drones and shit. That seems a little bit crazy. But like, there's always people when you train in stadiums the day before games or whatever, someone will be acting like a worker and they're like really working for a different federation or something. Like, it happens. It happens consistently. I'm positive of that. So I think the funny part is he says every team. Do you think he means the U.S. men's national team as well? Brian, do you have any insights with your time with U.S. soccer?
I can tell you that we did not. So I know what
I don't know.
I know what Tyler's talking about. I mean, when we're in stadiums, and especially myself, I get to walk around during a closed practice, and I've had to have security kick out 2 or 3 guys at different times, and so
taking notes.
Yeah,
we're supposed to be sweeping the floor, and we're taking
it's
notes.
Funny that I specifically remember being in Jamaica, and in Jamaica they own their own suite at the national stadium, so they get to bring in whatever they want. And these 2 guys decided to bring in whatever they wanted in a closed stadium, was able to get past security, like the Jamaican security. And I look around, I'm like, what are you loading in your suite? And there's maybe like a case of water. And so I'm like, all right, let's load this up and get out of here, because and they're like, no, we want to make sure it's all clean. And I'm like, all right, time to get our security to get them out of here. But so, yes, I mean, there's things like that, But to go about it and send a drone up over someone else's practice, that's pretty substantial.
I think for me, the only thing you can really glean from a match day one or right before -1 or whatever, the day before is some set pieces. Again, I still feel like you can get that information from the previous games. Maybe you'll see an additional one that you're trying to work on that's a little bit different from those previous games. Again, you still need to be switched on and make plays no matter what the set piece is in that particular instance. But ultimately, I don't think you're going to see too much tactics. Maybe you see some team shape stuff. Maybe I'm trying to go back to the times that we were playing under Bruce or Bob and like, what were we really working on? It was just kind of like getting your blood going, right? Just kind of competing a little bit. Maybe you're working on some basic set pieces. It's more about the service anyway. And then the runs just have to be nice and solid. I just don't know where the big advantage is, but it feels like if you're not cheating, you're not trying, Tones, you know? I don't know.
Hold on, Jim. Yeah, I think the one other thing that you have to think about is injured players. So if you have one of your top players,
that's a good shout. That's fair.
And he doesn't train, and they see that, then they know they don't need to worry about that individual.
That's fair. So I don't know why you wouldn't need a drone for that though, right? You could just take somebody to the stadium to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, go on, Tones.
No, not at all. The other thing I would think about is where a team's going to maybe press you early in the game. But good managers, right? You figure that out in the first 5 minutes of game. So you get like a 5-minute advantage, maybe, right? In the guy, I'm with you. What was I've been thinking about what was the term you used? The juice was not what was the term you used?
The juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah, there you go. That what Jimmy said. I agree, 100%. The juice isn't worth it. I was thinking about it all day. I'm like, I know it's going to come up because I saw the rundown. But anyway, there's not a lot. I still think from a tactical standpoint, you have to know that stuff. Like you have to know your opponent. I would think that watching the tapes of the last couple games would give you that, and I would think I'm just curious. I would think it's more prevalent at the national team level rather than at the club level, right? Because you see you're in the league, you see these clubs every week. National team's a little bit different. You're bringing in new players. Maybe a new coach comes in, you change the formation. But I would think it happens less at the club level than it does at the national team level because you're never really in the city like for a long time. It's not like you travel for 3 days. You're in the city. You're going to, most European teams, they travel night before, or they travel the morning of the game. And it just, I don't know. It's not worth it for me. I just don't know how it's worth. I feel bad for the Canadian women's team being docked the points, but the reality is they all said they didn't watch the video. I get it. They don't know that the videos that they were watching and the tactics that they were watching that were being built by their staff were predicated on some video that they got in a drone right somewhere. So someone had to pay the price in Canada.
Yeah, for sure. And fair play to the Canadian women's team because they still won all 3 of their group stage games and got through to the knockout rounds. So that's pretty remarkable. We'll see how they do once that kicks off today, I believe. Or tomorrow, excuse me. So Brian, just to top this off, I think what's interesting is that Tyler Adams is probably the one player on the U.S. that you'd want to be like, hey, is this guy hurt or not hurt? And I appreciate that you brought up the injured player. I hadn't really brought that into the conversation, but he's the perfect guy to answer this because he's probably getting questions from the janitors of the stadium. Hey, buddy, you healthy or what's the story? Hey, Mr. Glass House, you get you getting surgery 2 days after this tournament's over?
Easy.
Poor guy, he just can't get a break. Guys, one of my favorite players. That's why I got his jersey. All right, let's get into final thoughts. Let's tie a nice bow on the show. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us and the support and all the good comments in the YouTubes in particular. We appreciate you. And Big Tones, I'll come to you. Any final thoughts now as on the men's side, at least, our Olympic adventure comes to an end?
Yeah, we build from here, right? That's what you do. You now qualified, and you got to build from here. It's got to be better moving down the line. Hopefully, this experience for individual players at a minimum will help them in their future national team careers. And I do hope that some of these guys are pushing in the next 12 months, are pushing some of the full national team players in different positions.
Yeah, I love that. And I hope that happens. Okay. How about you, Brian?
Yeah. Experience matters. These experiences matter. And, people can take it a different way if they want. This isn't walking away thinking, oh, we did our job, we're happy. No one's going to be happy until we're winning, right? So when you look at it holistically, when you try and bring relevance back into what we just experienced, I think in the end, I'm hopeful that these players will be better for it. At the same time,
very well said from both you guys. Sorry, keep going.
All right. No,
I loved it. I loved it. Keep going.
We got to get going. I can get off. I just think
I want more pride in my life, not less. Keep going.
This is, a tournament that we've wanted to be a part of for so long. We finally were a part of it, and we got to experience what we need to improve on, and that's what we need to take away from it. The guys are going to be disappointed in the locker room right now or on the bus back to the hotel. That's for sure. Most everybody wants to win and has a desire to win. And those guys that have that tend to get further along and have longer careers. So hopefully this experience allows them to reach that.
Yeah, and they should be proud of getting into the knockout rounds for the first time in 24 years. So something to feel good about, even though there will be disappointment, which is natural. The next really step up for our U.S. youth national team will be on the men's side, at least, the U20 World Cup that's happening in 2025. So we'll be excited to cover that as well as we do here on Call It What You Want. That's it. I'm calling it a show. Really love what those guys said in final thoughts. I'm going to concur with those sentiments. We appreciate your support. Make sure you come back and join us next Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We're going to be live on the Golasso America YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like and subscribe on that channel as well. And we'll see you then. Thanks for hanging out with us. Call it what you want for life.